This founder believes all professional and driven amateur athletes will begin monitoring their own performance and health data. This will be done by the athletes purchasing their own research-grade wearable sensor tools and analytics. Give it up for Quin Sandler and Plantiga. This founder believes the medical and sports collaboration space is the biggest untapped market in the sports and fitness industry. Give it up for Partha Unnava and Lasso. Thank you, founders, for those introductions. Let's kick it over to our head referee, Nick.
All right, welcome, founders. Let's get ready to debate. This is the Sweet 16 for the athlete performance in wearables category. We have two amazing founders ready to debate. To get started, we're going to flip a coin to determine who will kick off the first question. So, Partha, would you like heads or tails?
Tails.
Tails. It is heads. So, Quinn, would you like to receive the first question or would you like to defer?
I'll receive the first question.
All right. So, just remember, you'll each get an initial 45 seconds to answer your question, and then the other person gets another 45 seconds to answer their question uninterrupted, and then you guys can go back and forth and debate. Best of luck to you, and if you could put 10 minutes on the clock to get this started. Here's the first question. How would you stop established sporting goods and e-commerce players from releasing white label product versions of your own product? Quinn, and your answer is?
I don't think you could ever stop them, so I think you have to out-innovate them. So in my business specifically, you can't white label a product unless you have the data and have developed the insights from that data. So, it's what we like to think of a data moat around our little castle. So I don't think I can stop as a maker of sensor insoles with IMUs, with analytics and insights. I can't stop Nike. In fact, I guarantee you Nike, Under Armour, these companies probably have like 15 of these projects underway. What they don't have is they don't have the data that I've collected on pro teams, on athletes, on physical therapists. So I think what we have to do is continue to innovate and out-innovate those big incumbents, because technically this is not really their bread and butter. So they're kind of in R&D and they're not in market. So we're young, nimble, agile, and that's our difference.
Partha, would you agree or disagree?
So I agree on the premise of innovation. I think that's important as always to maintain the pace of innovation, but I think there's a couple other ways that you can prevent really other people stepping into your space from a product standpoint. And I think a big part of that comes down to branding. So branding is like that undefined moat that you always have that, even if I copy Coca-Cola's formula, people are still going to buy Coke. Regardless if it's the same product, people associate a level of trust to great branding. So that's a really, really core element when it comes to those types of situations, whether it's white labeling, whether it's people knocking you off. The other side of the coin is that all of these businesses, first of all, when you're a big business like that, you have a ridiculous amount of momentum in one direction. So it doesn't make sense to veer too much off course. That's why a lot of these bigger businesses go toward acquisition or licensing as opposed to directly knocking people off. But if a business like that wanted to get involved in a new tech play, for us, we really lean on the side of partnerships. So we keep a really thorough Rolodex within every major competitor, everybody we have. I mean, we're friends with them. We work with them. We make sure that we have that relationship. So if they want to get to our space, that phone call is coming to me.
Quinn, anything to counter on that?
Yeah, I can't imagine, like, the concept of brand. I cannot imagine if they wanted to. If, like, let's say Nike wanted to jump into our space, we're going to compete on brand, or Adidas or Under Armour. Your point on building friendships and partnerships makes total sense. I agree. But branding, no, I think you got to out-innovate outside that brand, because they're going to be able to pull in Lindsey Vonn and Tiger Woods. And, like, if they actually wanted to go into our space, they could fucking destroy us in brand. So no, I don't think that's the case. But yeah, I think you just gotta make something better. At the end of the day, you have to make something more valuable than what they can conceive of or deploy. So you gotta out-innovate. Yeah, that's me.
So you're correct from the standpoint of, yes, all of these brands have big athletes. They have Lindsey Vonn, they have Tiger Woods. We as a brand also have Tiger Woods who uses our product. We also have James Harden. We also have the former CMO of Adidas and CEO of Reebok on our team. So we made it a very, very big part of our business strategy to be right in the weeds there so that it's too much of a conflict from a personal standpoint if there's a knockoff.
Fair enough. Yeah. Same thing for us. Like, we have Andre DeGrasse, who's a sprinter, who's kind of with Puma and some other brands. So yeah, I don't disagree. The best thing is to be as complimentary. But like, as an example, let's say that they're going to buy us, right? They're going to buy us because they feel threatened, not because they like our tech. That's how acquisitions work. They don't work like, oh, I really like what you're doing. It's like, no. It's like, I feel threatened by you, so I'm going to come out and buy you. So yeah, anyways.
Completely with the fundamental point you're making. I would also say that there's a tremendous amount of potential upside from a partnership or licensing angle where, and something like, say, a white labeling, right? It's only bad if it's not with your own permission. In our space, in stocks, a brand like Strideline has done a great job with their B2B licensing strategy. So these are all opportunities that can go both ways. It doesn't have to be a bad thing. And when those big brands call, I really do believe when you build the relationships the right way, they do call you first before they try to work around you. And if you're receptive to that and you have a plan as to how to deal with that inbound lead and really convert that into a source of revenue that can boost your brand in some way, you can take those opportunities and really spin them. So, I mean, I agree with everything you're saying in premise, from innovation and all that standpoint. Really my key piece is to reiterate that when you do take the time to build out great relationships within that space, it can be an advantage on top of everything else going on.
Yeah. Okay, we'll move on to the next question. So based off of your product and what you found success in, what is the best distribution strategy with the product into the sports industry? Is it B2B or B2C? And Partha, you'll start with that question.
Yeah, so I think that products fall into two categories. Either there's a predefined category for them or they're doing something completely new. And I believe that the strategy differs based on those two approaches. So if you're in a predefined category, you don't have to educate a consumer on why they need your product. You only have to explain why your product is the best compared to what other products they would buy for the same need. From that standpoint, a B2B and physical distribution strategy can be advantageous. In times like this with COVID, with social distancing, obviously B2B is not a great way to launch a product in 2020, but it can be more advantageous when you have the shelf space. The reason I say that is because in person, the differences between good and bad products is accentuated extremely strongly. But when you get online, that gets murky because you don't have touch, you don't have the visual right in front of you, and you don't have the ability to perceive vast differences in quality. When you get into the box of a product that's in its own category, the biggest burden that you have is education. You have to explain to people what this is for and why they use it. And so for a strategy like that, I feel digital is the best bang for your buck from an education standpoint to educate masses of people and very quickly identify the populations that resonate with the new technology that you're bringing to the market.
Yeah, so kind of to add to that from my perspective, B2B or B2C, B2C requires 10, 15, 20 million dollars. Like it's you're dealing with just people that don't read, that don't pay attention. They might buy your stuff because it's more whimsical. B2B, you kind of fall under two categories. I'm selling you something that's going to make you money, or I'm selling something that's going to save you money. Whereas in a B2C is different motivation. I feel very strongly that B2B, especially for our company, and I would say a lot of people in our space, you're going to get more bang for your buck. You're going to get in at the top of the market. You're going to create kind of reference customers, but you're also not going to make money there. Like real money is in B2C, but that B2B kind of, builds that rapport, gets you going. And also you have people that are motivated to use your product for different reasons. Like you sell into an NBA team, their athletic trainer wants to use stuff to make their player healthy. If you sell into a physical therapist, a sports med in some clinic, he wants to make money. They're just kind of driven by different motivations. Both are good, and to Partha's point, it kind of depends on kind of what you're trying to get after. But yeah, B2B for us at least has definitely been a good decision. More efficient.
Especially given the technology you guys have, it sounds like B2B would be a great way to roll that out into the market. Especially, again, I think this goes to the standpoint of educational complications and the end user of the product. For us, we're selling a product that's designed for the average person, right?
Yeah.
So go about selling that out into the market. Number one, the thing that I've really enjoyed about the process is it's not as cost intensive as you might guess. For literally thousands to tens of thousands, you can vet and completely qualify and build a profitable model in a new market that can scale and produce profit in the first month. I mean, it's a really exciting prospect if you do it the right way. And that's where great partners, great talent, great understanding, and knowing how marketing works on a macro level for the direct-to-consumer model is so critical. So I think that both strategies you can say the same thing about, but if you know how to do it well, it can be really cost effective and really positive for your business. But I would agree with what Quinn says. It depends on what your goals are from the process. For some businesses, they want to build centers of trust right off the bat. And that sounds like it's a great plan for you guys. And for us, the way that we went about building trust was through going after a lot of customer reviews right off the bat, at the same time gathering data to understand where we fit well early.
Yeah.
And so help guide the B2B and partnership efforts down the line, because we saw those areas of resonance and we were able to identify, okay, this person who has this specific condition means if we go to, say, a physical therapist or a podiatrist, that they're going to be a good physical distribution point to get to that customer. So that's the way we've thought about it, but it has so much to do with price point, business goals, the exact target market and how broad that market is, and the use case of the product, whether it's a daily use item or specific moments, whether it's for performance, whether it's for rehab. I mean, there's so many factors that go into it. So I think it's a very personal decision of which path you should be going on.
And I think for both of us, not like we're supposed to agree on everything, but like the term I love is B2B to C, right? Like we're selling to businesses, but ultimately the touch point of that business to their population, like we've sold into a team and now selling to some of their athletes, right? Because they're not with the team, for 4 or 5 months a year. So yeah, it's interesting.
Well, that's all the time we have for this, but let's add some more time to the clock and we're going to add an overtime question. So this will be more of a hypothetical. So given the current circumstances of everyone's quarantined and during this pandemic, if you were have to restart your brand from scratch and create a new product and create a new brand, what would be your go-to-market strategy given the current circumstances and your current limited resources? So Quinn, I'll let you start with that.
Well, we're kind of doing it now, but straight up remote monitoring. We live in a world where people are going to be collecting, in the world of human performance, sports science, people are going to be collecting data on themselves. And I think building products that allow people to collect kind of lab grade or research grade parameters like reactive strength and jumping and plyometrics and top speed, things like that, where they can do it on themselves at home on their own field without kind of needing to go through their coaches and that kind of B2B, but allowing them to collect on themselves and then share that data with their practitioner, their strength coach, or their athletic trainer. That's the focus that we feel ourselves shifting to now, with really good response and good uptake. So if I was to restart right now, I would make that our primary focus, is remote health monitoring or remote performance monitoring, and drive everything around that.
Your thoughts on that, Partha?
Yeah, so I think COVID presents some interesting challenges. Markets have shifted tremendously from a buying behavior standpoint. So the typical products that may have succeeded in, I would say, the sports and fitness ecosystem are not succeeding as much anymore. And I don't want to go into any specific use cases, but many of the peer brands that we talk to on a day-to-day basis are seeing anywhere from 20 to 60% drop off in their revenue. And it's because whole customer bases have disappeared because of a lack of school sports, because of a lack of summer camps, because of a lack of so many different things that have become a foundation for the way of life they're accustomed to. So I think that the main pain point, I'm speaking just within the sports and fitness industry, the main pain point for the individual customer is, on a macro level, how can I stay healthy? How can I stay fit and find some sense of competition in this world where I'm not allowed to get within 6 feet of anybody I don't know. And I think that brands like Peloton, brands like Forte, FitPlan, those are two new startups that we love, are doing such a great job in terms of helping people connect and be in a shared ecosystem of fitness. If we were to restart what we're doing today, we would likely be creating just a pure brand with much less innovation involved that's focused on partnering with as many of these streaming services as possible to shoot for brand exposure and one-on-one customer interaction. This is a period of time where ads are everywhere, but when people are using social media, they're using it differently than they were before, right? The exposure times are much longer, the way conversions are happening, click-throughs are happening, even commerce in general is very different. So I feel that this is a period of time that revenue is not the key indicator of growth for a brand, especially because it is a temporary phenomenon. It'll last a year and the effects of it will last maybe 3 to 5 culturally, but they'll echo away. And so this is a period of time where if played right, you can gain a tremendous amount of brand awareness and very, very deep personal connections with individual consumers in the sports and fitness world across the board that, if led into an innovative product launch in 2021, could be highly, highly fruitful and valuable. But I think now's a time for individual connection and less a time to focus on revenue. So that is, I think, the high level view of how I would look at things if I were to start today.
Great. Well, that's all the time we have there. It was a great debate on both of your ends. For all those listening, use the hashtag #DebateForCovid. Let us know who you thought that won that round. And now we're going to go on to the judges' analysis.
And let's introduce our judges. First up, Teddy Blank, principal at First Star Ventures. Next, Ryan McNeil, founder and CEO at Sports ID Inc. and member of the NFLPA. And lastly, Tracy Deforge, founder of The Players Impact. Let's kick it over to our head referee, Nick.
All right, that was an amazing debate between Quin and Partha for the Sweet 16 in the athlete performance and wearable section. And now we're going to move over to our judges for their analysis and picks. So to kick things started, Teddy, could you lead us with your analysis and your pick for this section?
Yeah, definitely. So I think this was really evenly matched. Both these guys clearly know their markets and their customers really well. I think the first question on the white label stuff, that's something every startup has to deal with, and answers will vary by market for sure. But I think here I would go with Quin's answer of building a data moat about your customers, about performance, about the product, and using that to continue to out innovate. I think Partha's point about brand was interesting, but at the end of the day, a startup has no brand until you build it. And so relying on your brand versus, as Quin mentioned, a Nike or someone like that can be really, really tough in those early days. The second question, I actually thought that Partha's answer here was really interesting and makes sense if you're kind of going from a team to an athlete perspective. You get those those KOLs, those key opinion leaders in the space, people who are really well respected, and using that as a way to get to the true end consumer, right? So the teams and the athletes are consumers, less so than maybe true businesses. But really interesting approach of getting your brand attached to somebody else's brand and using that to drive distribution. So I think I would actually give the second question to Partha there. And moving on to the last question about kind of how would you attack the current scenario? Again, really close and interesting answers, but I would go with Quin here. I think the plan of really taking advantage of the one-to-one of fitness economy that's being built in the COVID world. I think having a referral flywheel of these fitness instructors or cyclists who are building these followings, and using that as not only a referral flywheel, but also like hey, let's train together. I'm using this product to track, my performance and my health and my legs. Let's train together. You have one, here's a referral code. We can use the same stats and metrics, kind of keep up with each other. So I think that is, something that is going to that'll stick around. I think, finding a fitness instructor you love on the internet because you have to do it during COVID is one thing. I think it's a totally different thing after the world returns to some semblance of normal. But I do think that those one-to-one connections will stick. That's an emotional thing. It's not just kind of functional physical. So I think, at the end, I got to go with Quin here. It was really close, but I got to give the dub to Quin. I'm really interested to try out both products, and we'll potentially be placing a quarantine order here pretty soon.
Thank you for that, Teddy. So, Quin, you have 1 out of the 3 votes, and now we're going to move over to Ryan for your analysis and pick.
I looked at things a little differently than Teddy. I thought Quin made a great point about having a data moat. Inch wide, mile deep, that other bigger companies can't replicate. But I do believe in Partha's idea and concept of partnerships versus competition. I'm a firm believer you can do things faster, quicker, easier with partners. Maybe not necessarily the ones who want to white label you, but the ones that are competition on your level. It moves you along faster. Love Quin's idea of being the innovator and out innovating bigger companies because, as he mentioned before, they move forward. They move a little slower, and being a startup, you have that nimbleness and quickness to adjust and what I call micro pivot. Didn't understand at all what the hell Partha was talking about out branding a Nike, a Reebok, or Adidas. I'm like, that's to Teddy's point, you can't do that. Not being a startup because no one knows who the hell you are. And so I didn't understand that question at all. I love Quin's philosophy around B2B. Find the motivation. You're going to approach them to allow them to make more money or save them money. I thought that was classic and easily understood. Partha's, response about being a B2C and understanding that, I thought made a lot of sense as well. I wanted Quin to talk about the long-term outlook of his product and solution, right? There's a lot of technology being infused in sports. There's a lot of data already that exists that no one's going to, no one's evaluating now, no one's analyzing now, just sitting there. And so he's bringing another solution to add more data to those teams, organizations who haven't done a good enough job of analyzing the data they already have. So I thought that was kind of interesting. He has to find a way to get around that obstacle. For Partha, I thought he didn't talk about the health benefit of his product, being a compression sock. The number one injury in sports, especially youth sports, is sprained ankle. He didn't talk about that at all, right? He didn't talk about the options of colors. I'm assuming that eventually he'll have different colors for his product. Right now, it's only black and white. But I think that high schools, youth sports, collegiate teams, pro teams, you have to have, as you elevate in the sports space, you have to have a certain look and feel. Otherwise, you'll be fine. And so I think, once he gets to the point, he can buy those licenses. He can license NFL, NBA licensing to his product. I think that will solve that problem. But he didn't talk about the health benefit at all. I thought both understood their market quite well. I thought both understood their products quite well. And they really understand their product market fit in the ecosystem. But I vote for Partha and Lasso by a very small margin because I think he has a lighter lift to scale really, really fast over Quin.
Brian, thank you for that in-depth analysis there. So right now we actually have a tiebreaker, 1 vote for Quin, 1 for Partha, and we're on to the last judge. So Tracy, you are in the hot seat to decide who will go to the next round. So Tracy, could you please provide your analysis and pick for this section?
Yeah, sure. So I took a completely different approach and went a little bit more academic. Intentionally did not know a lot about each of their products, and don't think that this debate for me was about whose company was better. To me, it was about looking at the founder and their approach to their market, to their approach to their business in general. So on the first question, and I will also say that what a great debate. Super smart founders would be excited to invest in either of them. But going through the analysis, question number 1, Quin's passion and just a flat out, that's innovation. That's how you beat anybody. You innovate. You're on top of your game. Didn't necessarily agree with Partha's approach to friending the big brands, because at the end of the day, those brands are not your friends. They will they'll partner and take your idea and run with it if it makes sense to the bottom line, no matter how friendly they seem. I guess on the second side of things, on the second one, both really good answers that I think meet their specific needs. I would go with the consistency behind Partha's answer on that one. He was consistent, had good examples. I think overall in the overtime question, these guys, they both have really good positions. I had to go, although I love the passion and energy that Quin brought to the table, Partha had some really thoughtful experience behind his answers. And so at the end of the day, the tiebreaker goes to Partha.
Great. Well, that was an amazing analysis by all of you. Congratulations, Partha. You just got a ticket to the Elite 8. Congratulations to Quin. That was a great debate on your end. That wraps up the Sports Startup Sweet 16 round for the Athlete Performance and Wearables. Now we're on to the next round. But Brian, Teddy, Tracy, thank you all for that great analysis.
Welcome.